Welcome to Learn to Live Stress-Free. This is Christine Wright with Dr. Robert Wright Jr., your go-to wellness coaches of www.stressfreenow.info. Our featured guest today is Dr. Woody Johnson, speaking on how self-compassion and self-love helps relieve your stress and boost your chances for success. Dr. M. Woodruff Johnson has actively and successfully traded stock options, Forex, and futures since 2000. He is the former executive director of the Kaiser Permanente Watts Counseling and Learning Center. He holds certifications in accelerated learning, neurosensory development, and hypnotherapy, and he is a certified NLP master practitioner. Dr. Woody is also an associate professor and teaches graduate psychology courses at Pacific Oaks College and Ryokan College. He has provided clinical staff services in hospitals and community clinics as well. He has a passion for helping others to achieve their goals and get the results in trading and life that they desire. Dr. Woody has been using mind-body healing techniques both professionally and personally with much success for many years. He is the author of From Pain to Profit, Secrets of the Peak Performance Trader. Hello, audience. Welcome, Woody. We're so glad to have you back on the show again.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had such a great time with the last one. I'm looking forward to doing the same thing all over again.
Yeah, Woody, thanks for coming back. And audience, again, Dr. Woody knows his stuff, and he can explain it in a way that will help brighten your week, that you'll get more done, get more results, and feel better about it, as he moves us through and past this negativity bias that the brain has, and he shows the way by shining a light into the darkness. So, Woody, you have a book entitled From Pain to Profit, Secrets of the Peak Performance Trader, which, you wrote for traders. It has many suggestions and tools that would qualify as best behavioral practices if employed by non-traders also. Can you share one or two of your personal favorite secrets from that book?
Well, yes. One of them is a tool that is easy to use, highly effective, and fast-acting. Well, fast-acting.
That's what we want. What do you want? Fast-acting. Everybody wants that, right?
It might not be quite as fast-acting, but it's certainly a great one. But it's really elegant. That tool is called Stop, Challenge, and Choose. Now, what's interesting is that when we look at results, any result that we get is an outgrowth of thinking, feeling, and doing. And when we look at the results model, which begins with an event, and an event is anything that gets your attention, whether it's small as a fly landing on your arm or as big as something catastrophic that happens in your life. If it got your attention, it's an event. Now, that event filters through our paradigms, our mental models, and our maps of the world, maps of paradigms, mental models. And these maps or paradigms and mental models are comprised of everything that we've learned from 0 years up until the present. So that our parents, our family, our friends, our people that we don't like as well, our teachers, our counselors, our clergy, our coaches, the radio, the TV, all those things create those maps. And MAPS is not an acronym, but if it helps, you could just call it mental analysis program. So when that event happens, it filters through your maps. And when it filters through your maps, we have to remember that maps or these paradigms are largely unconscious. They are representations of reality, not necessarily fact. They are bound by beliefs, and they are automatic. When they are activated, these patterns of thinking, feeling, and doing are activated, and we react more than respond. So that once the thing has happened, then the reaction is automatic. So it's like a travel map. If you've got a travel map, you want to travel from, say, Maryland to New York, and you don't have a GPS, you've got to have a map. You've never done it before, and you don't know the way. You've got to have a map. But that map needs to be accurate. Now, if you're using a 50-year-old map, you may not even make your destination. So that, and another thing about travel maps are representations, not the terrain. You can't drive on a map. So that map is only as good as the information that went into it. But just like our mental maps have representations of reality that we accept as truth, but it's not necessarily the truth. So when that happens, when something happens to us, we first of all have a thought response, which may be out of our awareness. We first have a thought response. And that, let me give you an example first, and then we'll talk about the example. Let's say that you're driving down the freeway, and somebody pulls up beside you and then immediately cuts you off. What would be, do you think, most people's thought response be? What do you think most people's thought response would be?
Well,
it would probably. Go ahead, Bob.
I think the thought response would be delayed because they would have already had a verbal response or maybe, or a physical response, that helpful finger kind of thing. It just depends, but I think everybody gets that when somebody cuts you off, and especially when it's undeservedly, it sets up a whole cascade if you allow it to take control of you.
Right. And usually what people are going to do with a thought response, well, first thing they become aware of usually is the fact that they're angry, right? And then that's the first thing they become aware of. And secondly, what really happens first, but is out of their awareness, is the thought, well, this guy's a jerk. He's an idiot. Where did he buy his license from? And the third thing is what you were alluding to with the behavior, is that, they're going to hit the horn, they're going to put some choice finger symbols out the window, they may yell and scream, all those things. And how fast does that happen? Automatically. Because their reaction is based upon their thinking, feeling, and doing patterns that they've learned. Now, what if
Woody, I just want to insert this here because I just want to mention that I agree with you at the 100% level, but being from New York, our thing is inverted. We give the action first and then the thinking.
Gotcha.
Being from New York, I could say it, like, hey, it's like, oh, maybe sometimes people say, oh, like they shouldn't have done that, but I'm just saying, they had a reason for cutting me off. There was a bee that came into their car, and they lost control of the car. That's why they did it, but the thinking came later. That's all from New York. I can say that because I'm from New York. So.
Well, the other side of this is that all this stuff happens automatically, right? But then what if you found out that the guy had his pregnant wife in the pasture side and the baby was on his way out? You think that you'd have the same responses? Well, most people are going to say, no, I wouldn't have the same responses. But did the event change? Well, no, the event was exactly the same. The guy still cut you off. Just had a different interpretation, different conclusion about what happened. So that when something happens, that event happens, we have a thought. But the thought may be unconscious to us, but that thought is going to create the emotion. So the thought was that this guy is an idiot and that he only thinks about himself, so therefore he purposely cut me off. Now, the thought is going to create an emotion. That emotion could be anger and maybe even fear. Then that emotion is going to drive a behavior. That behavior is the stuff that, the putting your hand out the window, whatever, the horn, beating the dashboard, yelling and screaming, whatever it happens to be. Now, in that instance, there is the result. And when we get results that we don't want, we have to go back and begin to pull back the layers of the onion, begin to drill down and find out what it is that we were thinking and feeling that caused us to do whatever it is that got us the result that we didn't want. Now that gets me to the tool that's great for that. And this elegant, very simple, fast-acting, easy-to-use tool is called Stop, Challenge, and Choose. When you begin to get a signal that something is not right, that could be nervousness, that could be butterflies in your stomach, that could be experiencing fear, worry, doubt, anger, whatever those emotions are. And these emotions signal that there's an emerging pattern, and it's usually not a good pattern of behavior, a pattern of thinking, feeling, and doing that's starting. And if you're not aware totally of it, then first of all, you want to stop, take a deep breath, and begin to come back into the now, which is very, very important. To be in the moment allows you to manage the moment. Because so many of us, and myself included, have gotten into situations where we're either worried about what's going to happen or we're kvetching about what already has happened. So as we begin to take a deep breath, root ourselves in the now, then we start to interrupt that pattern. And once we begin to interrupt that pattern, we can ask ourselves three questions. When we're back into the now, we can ask ourselves three questions. First question is, what must I be telling myself or believing to feel this anxiety, fear, worry, doubt? Then once we identify that, then we ask ourselves, what is the objective reality? What's really going on here? You know, now in the driving example, we were telling ourselves that this guy, we could have been telling ourselves that this guy purposely cut me off because he doesn't care about anybody but himself. And so then we can ask the question, well, is that true? Is that absolutely true? Well, I don't know that. And then the third question is, well, the objective reality, because all events, I should have said this first of all events are message neutral. All events are message neutral. We always attribute a meaning to that event. Of course, when we have a meaning for something, that controls the what and the how we perceive. Not only the what, but the how we perceive. So that as we begin to pull back the layers and ask ourselves these questions, the third question is, what is an alternative interpretation? Well, that's when we can get, using a driving example, well, we happen to, if we somehow learn, well, we could say, we could use what you said earlier. It could be a B that got in the guy and said, we don't know what happened to him. So then we can choose, once we ask ourselves those questions and begin to get more information from our inner self, we can choose a response that's in keeping with our highest and best goals and our highest and best trader, if we're talking about trading, or our highest and best results that we want in any situation. So, first of all, the Stop, Challenge, and Choose tool is great for anything, anytime that you find yourself in a situation where you're feeling less than positive or neutral, meaning that you are feeling worried, doubtful, angry, jealous, envious, whatever it happens to be, rather than allowing that emerging pattern of thinking, feeling, and doing to hijack your system and then have you doing something that you might regret later. Ask yourself those three questions. What must I be telling myself or believing to feel this way? What is the objective reality? And what is an alternative interpretation? And then after you've answered those three questions, then choose a response in keeping with your highest and best person in you. So that would be one that...
You know, I just have to cut in here because you were smooth. That's the first thing, my comment. The second thing is, when you open your NLP school, you're just incredible. And I want to validate for our audience the technique that you just used, because while you were describing the Stop, Challenge, and Choose, what it made me remember is before we were here in Florida full time, that we were snowbirds, and I remember we came down and we had to go to Miami. And I think back then I was using MapQuest. You know, my son laughs at me when he says MapQuest, right? Nobody uses that, Dad. But I was using MapQuest, and in this particular case, surprise, the directions were incorrect. And so I was supposed to be going to Miami, and except that it was taking me west. You know, Miami's is not the direction of Naples, right? And so, but what was happening as I was on the interstate, I started to get a feeling in the pit of my stomach, just the way, and it kept getting tighter and uncomfortable. And I finally said to Christine, I said, my gut instinct tells me we're going the wrong way, and then I don't care what the directions say, but my feeling sense, right? My feeling is something's wrong.
Yeah.
And so to tell you how wrong it was, there's a toll booth that we were approaching, and then I knew that if we went past that toll booth, then, if we were going the wrong way, then we'd have to pay toll going and come back, make a U-turn, pay again. So as I approached the toll booth, the feeling was getting so strong, I slowed down and I pulled to the side. I got out of the car and I walked over to the toll booth and I asked the agent. She said, "The good thing you didn't go through." She goes, "Miami's the other way." Right? And I said, "What would have happened to me if I had gone through?" She said, "Well, you'd have to pay and then you'd have to pay again." She said, "Just make the U-turn in Miami's that way." And so what was really interesting, why I'm telling this story, is that, Woody, as soon as I made the U-turn, that feeling was gone. It just disappeared, and because I was going the right way. And so that was my intuition or sixth sense, whatever you want to call it, telling me something's not right. And so what I've gotten from your talk is it's about the information, and the information doesn't always come in ways that we might think. As you said, it could come from a dream or it come from some other thing. In this case, it was my gut instinct, which a lot of people use all the time in business, that they just have a feeling that they should make this decision, but I at least knew something was wrong. So in that case, I actually did I stopped, I said what's going on, and then I chose to get out of the car and check it out. And it led to a happy outcome.
Yeah, exactly. Great story, Todd. That metaphor speaks to the power of listening to ourselves and giving ourselves enough time to respond rather than react to what it is that we are experiencing.
Thank you so much, Woody. Those are really excellent points that you shared on best practices. When I look at your work, your body of work on articles, I find them so fascinating. You recently wrote a piece about the practice of self-love and self-compassion and how that can improve our outcomes and our incomes. Not just for traders, but for all of us. Would you share your thoughts on why how we see ourselves has such profound effects on our outcomes?
Oh, sure, of course, Christine. Well, we so often descend into self-hate. Self-hate is described as talking to yourself in ways that you would never talk to someone else in the street. You wouldn't step up to somebody and call them names and browbeat them verbally. Not if you are a normal person that respects other people. I mean, there are people that do that, of course, but I'm talking about people that are grounded and centered in their lives and respect other people. But we would talk to ourselves that way. And they don't support us doing things that are in our best interest. They don't support us in thinking in ways that are designed to help us focus on what matters most. And self-love is simply taking the time to, when we get in situations that we've made a mistake, we've done something that we can describe that as boneheaded. We wouldn't describe ourselves as boneheaded, because I've certainly done a lot of boneheaded things in my time. But that doesn't mean that I am boneheaded.
Tell us.
So it's using the opportunity to use that appreciative inquiry to support ourselves in ways that we would do to someone who we really highly respect that has gotten temporarily off track.
Right.
And in addition to that appreciative inquiry, the other thing is to talk to ourselves in ways that give us an opportunity to reframe what's going on, to reframe what we're doing, to reframe our thought process, more importantly. Now, if I said something like, you're so stupid to just do that, and if I'm self-aware and monitoring what's going on, then I can immediately go back and say, wait a minute, I'm not stupid. Now, what I did may have been a stupid thing. What I did certainly wasn't something that was helpful to me. And I can do this better in the next time. So I will get the information from that and aim to do better. In other words, I want to learn from what went on. I want to, first of all, actually, I want to accept it. I want to accept it because I can't change it. Not what already happened. I can't go back in time. That's what I can't do. I can't redo that. There's no do-overs. I mean, we can do something again, but that's something again is something different, even though it may even deal with the same situation. But if we do it again, it's something different. So first of all, I have to accept it. Because a lot of people want, like traders. Traders get into a bad trade, and they tell themselves, I shouldn't have gotten that situation. I shouldn't have gotten that result. I shouldn't have lost that money. Well, based upon the conditions and circumstances present in the trade, you did exactly what the thing to create that result. You violated your rules, you didn't keep your promises, and you executed the trade in a way that got that result. So you should have gotten that result. It's like the story about the 99 problems. I won't tell it again, but basically, your major problem is thinking that you shouldn't have any problems. So when we have a result, we've got to be able to accept it. Then we can move to the point of learning from it. Because if we haven't accepted it, we can't learn from it. We can't begin to identify what is it that happened that I can use to, in the next situation that's similar to this, I can respond, not react. I can respond in ways that are going to support me in getting the results that I want, the long-term desired results. So once I've learned from it, then the next thing, of course, is to move on, to let it go, to move on and let it go. So it is providing ourselves with the support that we would provide to someone else who we love and respect. So we want to love ourselves just like we would if we would love somebody else and do things for someone else that we actually love. And that reframing. Some people may not know exactly what that is. But that's just taking an idea and changing the content and or the context of the idea, which changes the meaning. Now, when you get a meaning for something, meaning control not only the what you perceive, but the how you perceive it. And when you perceive something and you attribute a meaning to it, then that's going to dictate, not just influence, it's going to dictate what you do about it. So when you reframe something, as I said earlier about reframing this thought that I'm stupid, I'm an idiot for doing it that way. Well, reframing changes the content and or the context so that it goes from unsupported and negative and destructive to being supportive and positive and hopefully something that's powerful.
Yes, very much so. Thank you for that, Woody. You know, there was something that you said the last time you were on our show, I believe you said it, or maybe it was in an offline conversation, that you had mentioned the idea of gratitude. And I think part of self-love and self-compassion when we go into criticism is to remember we can give ourselves a compliment, that idea of catch ourselves doing something right, and to give a compliment and to take a compliment. And that, I know, is a start in building that self-compassion. Woody, could you speak a little bit about the self-image and how and why it affects goal attainment, including those trading losses and profits? And when we do have this low or negative self-image, how does that play with our fear of poverty and our fear of criticism?
Well, you know, judgment is something that we all do and we're all deathly afraid of. Judgment drives a lot of our fears because, and in fact, it goes way back to when we were in caves, because we needed then others to survive. And if we were ostracized and judged to be not worthy of the tribe, we were kicked out. And if we were kicked out, then pretty much that's going to be a death sentence. And that sense of fear of being ostracized, being put out of the tribe, it still exists today. So it's really important for that sense of who I am as a person who is connected, who is in a relationship. Because when you look at it, relationships are what make us, provide us that other element of being human. You know, we are in a relationship with ourselves, we are in a relationship with others, loved ones that are around us, we are in a relationship with all the planet, and we're in a relationship with the cosmos, however you happen to embrace that, spiritually or religiously or whatever. So that sense of being in relationship and using the tenets of support, using the tenets of compassion, using the tenets of reaching out and embellishing upon that connection is very, very important. Now, one of the things that I share with my students is the notion of giving back, or as they coined a while back in that movie, Paying It Forward. Because we did not get to wherever we are in life, wherever that happens to be in one's particular life, alone. There were people who loved us. There were people who nurtured us. There were people who cared for us. There were people who respected us. There were people who, even if they didn't know us, there were people who, along the way, provided the support to get us to where we are. So that this notion of service is, and gratitude, and being thankful not only for who I am and what the Creator has given me, but to be thankful for my relationships in life and to provide service to others. That enhances my sense of self. It enhances my identity as part of the collective. It enhances my ability to interact in ways that are respectful and growth-oriented. And eventually what happens is that we fill the funnel with good notions of those notions of respect and compassion. We fill that funnel from one end, and it comes out the other end back to us. So this notion of self-love, compassion, and gratitude that not only help me feel better about myself, but also to support my clarity in what I'm doing and provide more creativity through that clarity to do it in an ever growth-oriented way. So eventually, I'm going to do what you had asked, that you shared in a moment ago when you said that people will actually begin to create more benefit, more financial gain for themselves in the end.
Yes, thank you so much.
Great. I know our audience is enjoying this, Woody. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about the forms of resistance that takes place in the trading context and outside of the trading context? You know, what the root cause of resistance might be from your perspective, and also, which we talked a little bit early about, why, you know, because many people would not understand or have been puzzled by why a part of you or an aspect of you might want to fail or thwart your efforts to be successful or make progress. And that also goes a little bit into this negativity bias where, you know, how the brain is structured. People like Harvard Dr. Srini Pillay or neuroscientist Rick Hansen, they talk about that quite extensively, the negativity bias of the brain. So could you just talk about that, how that might apply in terms of resistance?
Well, sure, Bob. You know, first of all, if we're talking about trading is arguably the single most challenging business venture on the planet. Why is that? Because, first of all, we're talking about money. And there are belief systems that we begin to incorporate, that we assimilate into ourselves, that is programming. And we develop definitions of ourselves based upon our belief systems about money. Because, you know, on the planet, money is king. And capital and the derivatives of capital create influence. I mean, that's just the way it is. In fact, even when we're children, we are pitched at, we are inundated by messages about money and the power of money and the fact that you have to have money all the time. So that's why one of the reasons why trading is arguably the single most challenging business venture on the planet. The other is that when you're in a trade, regardless of what's going on with the price action, you are going to be with every tick of the market, because as the market goes up, it ticks up, and it goes down, and down, it ticks down. With every tick of the market, you're either gaining or losing, which begins to activate limiting or irrational or negative beliefs about what it means to be losing, what it means to be wrong, and what it means if I have a limiting belief about the need to be right, what it means to my self-esteem, what it means to my self-confidence, what it means to my self-identity about this notion of being wrong. So, first of all, that whole process is really difficult. And as soon as we take a trade, every blemish, character flaw, and or personality issue is going to be tested, called out, and punked. But it's not the markets that are doing that. We are doing that to ourselves, because what gets activated are all of these limiting, irrational, negative beliefs, either about money or about myself and my relationship to it, and about these other ideas of being wrong or being judged, or eventually thinking that I'm going to lose all of my money and be pushing a cart out in the street. Now, these constitute emerging bad patterns. And these bad patterns have associated with them inertia. And of course, we know what inertia is. The movement of a body tends to stay moving unless it's operated upon by an outside force. So we have to, first of all, slow down. See, when we have a bad pattern, a bad habit of doing something, and we try to change that habit, as time goes on, the things that we do to change that habit, it's like putting a rubber band between our hands. Now, at first, when you pull that rubber band apart, it's pretty easy. But if you keep going, you're going to get real resistance to the point where one of two things is going to happen. Either that rubber band is going to break, pop, and your hands are going to fly apart, or they're going to snap back together. You're going to be back doing the same thing over and over. So these emerging bad patterns, bad programming or inertia, has to be identified for what it is. These emerging bad patterns of thinking, feeling, and doing. And then with trading, one trade at a time, one issue at a time, through journaling, through having a trade log and a thought journal, so that we can begin to amass the data. Remember, the data is so critically important to this process. To amass the data that we need in order to make good decisions and determinations about what to do next, and to do next after that, and to do next after that. So that resistance is something that is tackled on a step-by-step basis, beginning to ask ourselves questions about what's going on, how's it going on, and more importantly, what are my limiting, irrational, and or negative beliefs about this particular item.
Thank you so much, Woody. We'll be back in a moment for more with Dr. Woody Johnson on Learn to Live Stress-Free.
Hi, I'm Dr. Robert Wright, Jr., the Stress Relief Doctor, co-host of the Learn to Live Stress-Free podcast series. I'm an author, speaker, and stress management wellness coach. My published study is the first to show the connection between stress reduction, grief recovery, nitric oxide spiking, and the relaxation response. And my practical application of this knowledge helps you relieve the stresses of everyday life. I have the tools to dissolve your pain points quickly and effectively. Email me to find out how you can start to feel better now at stressfreenow.info/contact. That's stressfreenow.info/contact.
Have you been procrastinating about completing an important project or pursuing a treasured dream? Christine Wright specializes in helping her coaching clients to lay out clear, elegant strategies. She shows you how to quickly build your confidence to uncover and eliminate your habitual patterns of resistance and self-sabotage. Christine helps you discover those meaningful insights that will get you to do what works so you can celebrate your successes. Go to stressfreenow.info/contact to let Christine know that you're ready to live your ideal life now. Again, that's stressfreenow.info/contact.
Welcome back to Learn to Live Stress-Free. Dr. Bob and I are speaking with our featured guest today, Dr. Woody Johnson.
Hi, Woody. I want to pick up on something that you mentioned right before the break, and this issue of money. And so I think your answer about why trading is such an amazing career. Let me ask the question this way: Can you lay out for our audience why money brings up the level of fear, anxiety, and trepidation, both consciously and subconsciously? I know you mentioned briefly that being afraid of pushing a cart down the street, but can you do almost like a dartboard thing, because money seems to be in the background of almost everything. When you peel, like you say, peel the layers of the onion, you go, so behind all of this other stuff is the money, right? And the things that we learned as children, or learned incorrectly as children, or were told that weren't true. And I could think of from time to time, when we've met with a tax person or financial planner person, and then we find out something that we read in the paper that we've seen for years, or what we thought, and it turned out not to be true, and it all had to do with money. And so can you just put a spotlight on that psychologically? What's happening inside the brain, and what's happening with our emotions, that just as I think the key thing you said is about this irrational aspect, and then tied to the limiting belief, where, as for example, if you as a small child you overheard that only bad guys have a lot of money, and your mind accepted that, then it would be very hard in the future, because like a thermostat, the mind is trying to pull you back to whatever that limiting belief is.
Yeah, Bob, that's great the way you put that. Money is ubiquitous. And the interesting thing about money, though, is that as powerful as it is, it only gets its power from the meaning or the value that we attribute to it. I mean, I ask people to put their purpose down and identify what matters most in their life, so they can apply to what matters most to the trade. And the first thing that most people would want to put down, what do you think that would be? The purpose for money, right? They want to get a lot of money.
Right.
But the thing is, money is an extrinsic motivator for all of the belief systems that we have, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a moment. For all the belief systems that we have about money, money can't be eaten. At least I wouldn't suggest it. You can't drink it. You can't wear it. Money is only a medium of exchange. But our relationship to it tends to make it so much more because of the role that it plays around the planet. So what we have to do is begin to identify, by asking ourselves again questions through appreciative inquiry. We want to ask ourselves questions like, what does money mean to me? So that we can begin to unearth and discover what those beliefs are, whether they be empowering beliefs, or whether they be, like empowering belief might be, Aunt Jane, you always said that, child, money is a good thing, and that as you give, you get. And Aunt Jane always had a lot of money. So that might inform your beliefs about money being good. That's an empowering belief. But if you had Uncle Joe, who could squeeze a buffalo off a nickel, you would have and thought that only jerks had money, then your belief and your attitude about money would be entirely different. So that these questions, like, from where do your beliefs about money come from? And the question, what if anything would a drawdown mean to me as a person? What, if anything, does that say about me as a person to have a drawdown? When you have a drawdown in your trading, when you've lost a few times and you have significant drawdown? Well, what
How
if
many ticks,
any...
Woody? How many ticks?
Exactly.
We're counting.
What, if anything, does that say about me? So those types of questions begin to get to the heart of what's happening in you that is driving other conscious thoughts about people, about money you have, people, and about the money they have or don't have, about systems, about what it means to have it and to not have it. And that information is so important to your ability to clearly be able to identify what you need to do, to clearly identify and focus on what matters most, and to clearly follow your rules and to keep your commitments in the process. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, especially in the context when I think of the trading as a zero-sum game, that,
right.
There's winners and losers at the end of the day. And when I was thinking, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was the dean of the MIT Sloan Business School, and he wrote about zero-sum activities, and trading pretty much falls into that, because it's the winners are taking money from the losers. and
oh, yeah.
And so the issue is, well, what percentage of traders make money versus the ones that don't? And then I think, it's and then as you go to the higher reaches, but it's not just in trading, it's in everything. If you take selling, et cetera, I think Brian Tracy talks about that. He was saying the top 20% make 80% of the money, and then the top 20% of the top 20%, which is 4%. So you're saying your objective is to be in the top 4%. And so that's what I was thinking about, that this money thing is because you're not taught any of this stuff in school, in terms of what you really need to know about money.
That's right.
Yeah, so I want to thank you for that. So this goes right into my next question, which is about self-care, Woody. We feel very strongly that self-care plays a critical role in success. Not everyone feels that way, because we talk to many people and we ask them the question, well, when's the last time you took a vacation or took any time off? And some people are, thump on their chest saying, well, I haven't had a vacation in 17 years. And as you know, Woody, as you look at the statistics, there are many people that are dying before the age of 40. And some of them 45, and they're not making it to even the speed limit of 55. And so can you just briefly share with our audience why the concept of self-care isn't the same thing as being selfish? The reason you're posing this question is because when I speak to a lot of women, or sometimes, especially mothers who feel, like one woman I know in New Jersey, she said, well, I feel like I'm Wonder Woman without a cape. And, taking kids to the soccer games, has a full-time job, and then, she doesn't, I said, well, why don't you ask for help? The dog just tracked in mud from the backyard. And she said, well, I don't, because then it's more work, because I have to do it over. But I said to her, before assisting others, remember to put on your oxygen mask first. So, that's our perspective. So could you share your perspective on the self-care, Woody?
Of course. Great question. Self-care, as you just so well said a moment ago, is realizing the relationship between your ability to be there for somebody, for your kids, for your spouse, and to ensure that you're not compromising that ability by running yourself into the ground, by stressing yourself out to the point where you can't think clearly, and by creating unhealthy situations physiologically because you have compromised your immune system. And it really boils down to, when you talk about addictions, there are people who are called codependent. They're also called enablers. And codependency is behavior on the individual's part that supports the destructive behavior of the addict. And they are caught in the web of the inability to see the situation clearly. And even if they see it clearly, they find themselves not able to do something about it because they have immersed themselves into, even though they're not using, what they are doing is tantamount to using, because it is creating a self-perpetuating situation. So just like with the person who is codependent, they have to begin to stop. They got to slow down, first of all, to get away from the inertia, and then stop what's going on. Which, of course, is different. I'm not trying to intimate that it's easy. But this is what has to happen. So that as we are negotiating through what could be a minefield of obstacles and barriers, we have to always take the next step with the realization that if I don't take care of myself, then I won't be at the optimum level of being able to support my loved ones. I often ask the question, who in your life is the most important? So people want to say, my kids. They want to say my spouse. They want to say things like that. They may say God. But on this plane, the most important individual in your life has to be you if you intend to be the best that you can be in supporting your loved ones around you. Because once you compromise yourself, once you begin to descend into self-destructive behavior, even if it's just not taking care of yourself, even if it's just putting your health in harm's way because of the choices you're making, that is creating a situation that is going to eventually end in tragedy. At worst, at best, at confusion, and people not being well. So that notion.
Woody just gave us another show. I mean, my goodness, a self-care show. That's great. Yeah, I just want to wind down with a question like this. Since you're in an ideal seat, a catbird seat for this question, you've already identified that trading is perceived as one of the highest risk occupations, for people that really know what trading, what's involved. And then you use the key trigger word that when I heard it, I said, oh, there's that trigger word, drawdown. And so when you use that word drawdown, they have your account drawdown, and I was thinking the worst case scenario is you draw it down and you're negative, right? So which is wipeout. And so what I was thinking is, can you share with our audience your one or two tips for managing that stress and anxiety that can come? I know you gave us the stop and challenge and choose, which was great, but thinking about, like a trader in a situation where let's say the open comes and they go, hey, they have confidence, they've been reading the news, and they're going to go into a trade and violate the number one trading rule, which is never use more than 5% of your capital, right? So they go in, they're so confident, they use 50% of their capital on their opening trade, and then without any stops, the trade goes against them, and then they freak out, and they go, you know what, let me put in a stop, and then it goes, market reverses, and they get stopped out, and they're on wipeout. So my question is, you're in an ideal position to answer the fear that when that person going into the trade, they violated the rule. They didn't stick to their plan. They used 50% of their capital, not 5%. Oh. They traded without stops. And then when it went against them, they freaked out. So it's how to manage, because I believe when they're correctly managing the stress and anxiety prior to putting on the trade, then the blood is flowing to the left hemisphere, so they're thinking, their prefrontal cortex is not shut down, and then should something go against them, they follow their plan, and then they are able to take their losses. Because you said something earlier when you spoke with us about losses, that, trading, you have to be able to take losses and accept losses, and that's a hard thing. And so that comes with trading and practice and commitment.
Right. So with drawdowns, one of the best ways to begin to handle that and deal with the stress on is to meditate, quite succinctly. Meditation, a lot of people are afraid of it. They don't know what it is. They think it's something that is a way to get away from God or something like that. But meditation is not necessarily, you can make it religious, but it's not religious. And it doesn't have to be spiritual, although I believe it is, but it doesn't have to be. Physiologically, it's a way to begin to allow, it's like if you got a jar of dirt, and it's got some dirt in it, and you shake it up, you agitate it, that dirt is all over the place. You can't see. There's no clarity. But when you sit that jar down and allow it to sit there for a while, those particulates begin to go down to the bottom. And you get clarity, you get stillness, you get the ability to respond rather than react. So when we use something like meditation, and meditating for like 20 or 30 minutes a day, every day, where you're not latching on the thoughts, and you are passive, and physiologically what also happens in the brain is that the brain begins to integrate and differentiate around thought patterns, around different parts of the brain that are for different things. Like you mentioned, the prefrontal cortex. That's the executive function of our brain. And then there's the amygdala. The amygdala is your alarm system that makes you very fearful. There's the hippocampus that is there to identify and categorize memories. And there's your hypothalamus. There's your pituitary. All those, the HPA axis. All those things begin to differentiate. In other words, they take the information that they already have, categorize it well, that's differentiation, and then they integrate with other parts of it because there's clarity in the process. There is communication across the different parts of the brain. So you don't have to look at it from a spiritual aspect. You can look at it simply from a physiological thing, because the studies and the research that has been done on meditation over the last 70 years, there are volumes of information, of research information, studies that have been done about meditation. Meditation is the ability to calm the nerves, to bolster the immune system, to calm the heart down, begin to beat in normal ways, to just optimize the system. That's one tool. Another tool is to use visualization. We talked about it a couple of times already, but to have a sensory-rich vision of what your purpose is, what your goals are, and when the brain visualizes, either positively or negatively, and if the individual is believing it, and usually we are believing something that we are picturing and creating movies about, the brain treats it as though it were already a reality. So that if we're thinking in doom and gloom pictures, what happens is that we begin to do things that manifest that doom and gloom reality. We are creators of our situations. We are creators of our results. We are creators of our lives. At any point in our lives, it's a sum total of all the thoughts, the pictures in our head, the things that we did, and things that we felt at any particular time in our lives. So that we want to construct a sensory-rich vision so that when we hear, feel, and see what that purpose or what those goals are going to look like, sound like, and feel like kinesthetic, auditory, visual representation, and that is future-paced. And in that way, we begin to be not only the author of our future, but we are the creator of our future. We make it happen. So those are just two very powerful tools that I would use if I've got drawdowns, I've got things that are, and I'm feeling really depressed and like this is not working out. I want to begin to, first of all, get a hold of myself, get back into the now, aim to align my body, mind, and emotions to go in the same direction for the same goals. And that when we're aligned, we can do that. And then I want to use meditation and I want to use visualization processes.
Thank you so much, Woody. We truly appreciate you sharing your extraordinary genius and skill set with us. And definitely, Bob and I do know from the research, from our experience, from our work, that meditation and visualization are indeed very, very powerful tools, and certainly a great way to treat ourselves to self-care is when we take some time in the day for ourselves. So Woody, Bob and I want to thank you for being our guest on the show again today, and we just truly appreciate all that you have shared with us. Thank you.
Well, the pleasure was all mine, Christina. Bob, thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. I love it. And any time that you'd like me to come back, if that happens again, I would be honored and privileged to do that.
Oh, thank you. We will definitely have to have you back. Now, Woody, before you go, would you share with our audience how they could contact you to learn more about all that you offer?
Well, they can go to my website, Hit the Target, all one word, hitthetarget.org. I've got some goodies on there that one can go and check out. They can email me at wjohnson, Johnson, at tradingacademy.com. And they can call me. And they can also Twitter me. They can follow me on Twitter at Mario Woody. MARIOWOODY. Oh, and also, you know what? They can call me at 310-892-4427.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. So, audience, you have a variety of ways that you can get in touch with Dr. Woody. You can check him out at his website and see all that he has to offer at hitthetarget.org. That's HITTHETARGET.org, hitthetarget.org. Email him at wjohnson@tradingacademy.com. Check him out on Twitter at Mario Woody, that's MARIOWOODY, or give him a call at 310-892-4427. Thank you so much, Woody.
Oh, thank you for having me, Christine. I really appreciate it.
Yes, Woody, what final thoughts or key idea would you like our audience to take away from today's broadcast?
Sure, Bob. The bottom line that I would like people to realize is that their future is in their hands, and their ability to allow themselves and give themselves the opportunity to ground and center themselves in the future pace of what they really want in their lives, to get a specific plan together, to get first of all, a specific purpose, a specific goal, a specific plan, is going to really begin to help them to get to that point in their lives where they get better results.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And I just want to say, Dr. Woody, that I know our audience is very appreciative of how you have synthesized and brought together this issue for healing, the need for inner and outer congruence and alignment. You know, sometimes this is solved with the flow states, sometimes it's solved with stillness, but basically alignment and congruence are really key, and I think that our listeners will take that away from today's broadcast. So audience, I want to thank you again for listening, and I want to thank Dr. Woody for being our featured guest today. Thank you, audience, for listening. Wherever you are and whatever time zone you're in right now, we appreciate your presence and trust that you'll benefit in some way from the information delivered during today's show. We welcome and look forward to receiving your comments about our show. Please let us know if there are additional topics you'd like us to cover or a guest you enjoyed whom you'd like us to invite back on another podcast. Please contact us through our website, since your feedback is important to us. Remember, listeners, if you'd like to experience the same benefits our coaching clients get with us, including learning how you can get more results in your day and easy ways to dissolve your chronic pain, stress, and anxiety, then give us a call at 954-900-2179. Mention that you heard our Stress Free Now podcast show, and you'll receive a free gift from us. For Christine Wright, this is Dr. Robert Wright, Jr. of www.stressfreenow.info. Until next time, be safe and be well.